Haldo! Welcome back, everybody.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, thank you. That's quite enough. Alright, for those of you who don't know, today is my birthday. Yeah, not a big deal. But coincidentally, Mario Party 10 just came out today, which, of course, I pre-ordered. I got the game, and I'm really excited to play it, but now it's review time. Back in my last video, you heard me gush over how much I loved Super Mario World and why it's my absolute favorite video game ever. So now, you're probably wondering what I think of its kinda sorta sequel/prequel, Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island. Well, believe it or not, this game and I actually share a pretty interesting history. I was 4 years old around the time the Nintendo 64 was near the end of its life, and when the GameCube was just around the corner. However, I was only 4 years old at the time, and I had no idea what a GameCube even was, so I was pretty much still stuck on the Super Nintendo that we got from my aunt. And even though I have very fond memories of Super Mario World, one of the games that my mind is quite fuzzy about is Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island. I remember playing it, but I don't exactly remember the game itself. Since my original Super Nintendo and copy of the game are long gone now, I decided to get a ROM of the game for my SNES emulator on the Wii and play it that way. I do plan on getting another SNES copy of it sometime in the future, considering the fact that I've since gotten a new Super Nintendo a few years ago, but for now, I'm sticking with the emulator. So, when I got done playing it again after nearly 15 years of having little to no memories of it, is Yoshi's Island still worth playing today? And even though it's not a real sequel to Super Mario World, does it deserve to be considered a worthy follow-up? Well, let's take a look. Yoshi's Island was released for the Super Nintendo on October 4th, 1995. Around the same time the PlayStation was killing it in the market, and just as the Nintendo 64's launch was underway. I guess Nintendo decided to make a 16-bit platformer that was so good, it could show people that the SNES was still great, even when compared to the PlayStation. And I suppose they thought Yoshi, our favorite little scapegoat from Super Mario World, was the perfect choice to be the main character. Now, let's see just how he manages to showcase the very best of the Super Nintendo's power, even at the near brink of its discontinuation. Our story begins with a stork delivering 2 babies to their mother and father. Because I guess birth in the Mushroom Kingdom works that way. Suddenly, a Magic Koopa named Kamek flies into the bird, causing him to drop one of the babies. I'm not sure how, but miraculously, the baby manages to survive the fall by landing on the back of a wandering Yoshi, who takes the baby, now revealed to be a young Mario, back to his friends in hopes of figuring out what to do with it. So, what's the plan? Take turns carrying Baby Mario through several dangerous missions and risk him being eaten by starving piranha plants just to rescue his younger brother Luigi from the clutches of Kamek. This just seems odd to me. I mean, if they really wanted to keep Mario safe, they could have just let one Yoshi go on the journey by himself while the rest of the Yoshis look after Mario in the safety of their tiny jungle area. Then again, that stork was kind of violently shaking those babies around during flight, so maybe Mario just became immune to being frightened while in dangerous situations? But I digress. Now, even though Yoshi's Island is subtitled Super Mario World 2, there's not too many similarities between this and Super Mario World. There are some elements that could come off as familiar, such as the enemies and collecting coins and whatnot, but Yoshi's large and in charge this time, and he's packing. Now he can eat enemies, turn them into eggs, and toss them around, which is actually kind of disturbing. He has this handy little flutter jump that is sometimes helpful, but makes him feel kinda heavy. And he has a ground-pounding move that makes mincemeat out of anything in his way. I actually like this move the most, since it's the most reliable and easiest to control in my opinion. While we're on the subject, I'm a little mixed about how Yoshi handles altogether. Sometimes he controls pretty smoothly, but other times I find that he carries a little too much weight. This issue I noticed was often present when performing the flutter jump. I can sincerely feel Yoshi struggle to stay in the air, he feels that heavy. Meanwhile, he controls perfectly fine on the ground. Finding what buttons perform which actions took me a little while, but I adapted pretty quickly, and now I find that the buttons are all in the right places. You know, thinking about it now, maybe it's because of Baby Mario that Yoshi's flutter jump feels so heavy. Yeah, Baby Mario is riding on your back throughout the entire game, except for certain sequences when Mario's running up walls and such. At first, I didn't really mind this at all, but after the first time that baby got knocked off my back and left floating around in that stupid bubble crying non-stop, I became a tad annoyed. Each level has to be cleared by making sure the baby's on your back when you reach the goal ring. And every time Yoshi takes a hit from an enemy, Baby Mario gets into a bubble and won't stop crying until you get him back. And no, you can't just beat the level without him, because if you take too long to get him back, your timer runs out and you have to restart from your last checkpoint. If Mario had just been cared for by the other Yoshis back at the jungle, Yoshi's trip would be a whole lot easier. At least the platforming's pretty fun. Yoshi's Island doesn't have a time limit like the other Mario games, so you can pretty much explore the realms of each level for as long as you want. And doing this can help you uncover some hidden secrets as well. There are usually little winged clouds for you to find that give you something special when tossing an egg at them. These hidden goodies include flower icons that behave like dragon coins from Super Mario World, stars that add time to the baby meter, as I like to call it, or a bunch of coins that can often include red coins. Some sequences will even have Yoshi transform into a vehicle that controls pretty awkwardly if you ask me, or like I briefly mentioned before, have Baby Mario running up walls at high speeds collecting coins. But these sections are very far in between and they don't happen too frequently. The same could be said for the minigames. These usually only happen if the player completes a level 100%, which won't happen unless you collect all the flower coins and red coins and keep the baby meter from reaching under 30 seconds within that level. Getting 100% on a level could be the hardest part of the game, but this doesn't really bother me because I just play the game normally. Can I take a minute to talk about how much I really like the graphical style? Yoshi's Island was originally going to go for a more pre-rendered 3D look that Donkey Kong Country helped make incredibly popular. In fact, the opening cutscene could be a remnant of this idea, but Shigeru Miyamoto insisted that it went for more of a hand-drawn approach, with backgrounds and characters looking like they were drawn with crayons. And I'm very glad he made this choice. Colors are variant, outlines are thick enough so that everything pops out in the right places, and the character designs are different as well as unique. Looking at this game really makes me wish Nintendo experimented more with other visual styles with newer games. Ugh. And since I've been talking about the graphics alongside the music for presentation with the past few reviews, I can't really say much about the soundtrack. I love the overworld theme, the map theme, the jingle that plays when you beat a level, and especially the athletic theme, but honestly, that's about it. I can't express my complete opinion on the soundtrack because the rest of the songs are either forgettable or they just didn't leave that much of an impression on me. No offense to any fans of this game's soundtrack in particular, I just can't remember every single track on it. Wait, what was I talking about before? Oh, yeah, the game. Right, sorry. Each world consists of 8 levels, 6 normal levels, and 2 fortress levels. Both fortress levels have a boss battle in each one. All of these bosses being affected by Kamek's magic. The first few bosses I found were really inventive, and probably the most inventive I've played so far. My favorite is probably the fight inside a giant frog's stomach. It's just so surreal and yet so amusing, especially that traumatized looking expression Yoshi has on his face when he wins. But Naval Piranha can go die in a fire. I hate this boss so much. You have to throw eggs at this giant piranha plant's abnormally large outie while avoiding getting hit by his vines that pop up from below you. Sounds simple, right? Well, here's the thing. Every time I had a clear shot, for whatever reason, it wouldn't hurt him. I managed to get him once, but every other time somehow didn't do any damage to him. What am I doing wrong? I have him targeted all right, but how is it that nothing I do hurts him? In fact, since I'm beginning to get a bit negative, let me tell you a story about my first experience playing through World 3-6. At the start of the level, I went through a pipe that took me to an underground area. There was a locked door that needed a key located somewhere in the level to open it, and at first, I thought it was optional, so I just continued on my merry way. But the moment I realized that there wasn't a normal exit, that's when I discovered that the locked door served as my only means of continuing. I promised myself I wouldn't get completely irritated if the key was in a spot that was easy to reach. But that's when I found out where it actually was. The key was in an area that needed me to approach it from above, and no matter how many times I got through this digging section, I just couldn't reach it. I literally spent 15 minutes trying to figure out how to get that stupid key. And that's when my idiot moment for the day kicked in. I took too much damage and lost a life, sending me back to the beginning of the level. That moment, I saw that there was a second pipe located above the one I went through before, and entering it took me to where I spent 15 minutes trying to get to. I then proceeded to slap my forehead and sigh neglectedly, having felt like a complete idiot for not realizing what I could have done before. Then again, can you really blame me? I didn't know that other pipe was there. So, after wasting a quarter of an hour on that one level, not to mention the frustrating experience that was Naval Piranha's boss fight, I was just ready to call it a day. Maybe it's all just a matter of whether or not I'm a truly skilled gamer, but you must understand that sometimes the experiences you have with a game can affect your opinion on it dramatically. With that said, what's my verdict on Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island? Well, notwithstanding a few minor bumps, as a whole, I think this game is just okay. Yoshi's Island for me is somewhere on the same level as a good amount of Sonic the Hedgehog games. That being, the game gets really good to a point. The first two worlds are fine, but World 3 was where it just started to become a bit too much. I'm not calling Yoshi's Island a bad game at all, but I know one thing's for sure. I didn't have as much fun here as I did with other games, especially Super Mario World. I really did want to love this game when I started playing. I really did. It has decent controls, an imaginative art style, and some pretty good music. Sadly, I couldn't get engrossed in it for too long, but that's just me. I know there's a Yoshi crowd out there, and I'm willing to give Yoshi's Island another chance someday, but right now, I'm just ready to move ahead with the rest of this marathon. My schedule's already tight enough as it is. Now, before I sign off, I'd just like to remind you guys that this marathon is going to be focusing on all the 2D Mario games first, and then the 3D games. So does that mean I'm going to the new Super Mario Bros. Games next? Actually, no, because Mario also had a few platforming games on the Game Boy. Next time we're covering one of the first games ever made for the Game Boy, Super Mario Land. Until then, this is Mark, aka Super Smash 3DS, bidding you all a smashing farewell.